Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new shell that we have not tried before, and it's a variant of one that few of you guys have really requested to see. So I found this version that we're going to try, and I'm working on getting the other version of them as well, so we'll see what they can do. But for the shells we've brought today, I got some more of the Remington Express buckshot loads, but these ones are the 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 27 pellet load of 4 buck, moving about 1325 feet per second. Several of you guys have really wanted to see us test some of these Remington 4 buck loads. These ones are the 2 3/4 27 pellet loads, and they make a 3 inch that I believe is a 41 pellet load, if I'm remembering correctly as well. I definitely plan on testing those, but for today we're going to start with the 27 pellet load. And to my surprise, a lot of these newer Remington Express buckshot loads have been rather surprising in their pattern performance, so I actually have some decent hopes for these coming into it here. But as for the setup we're going to run them through, I brought out the Remington 1187, got a 28 inch barrel on it, and for the choke we're going to go with the stock regular old flush full choke. This exact full choke measures out at a 688 constriction for those curious, but this has always been a very reliable and consistent performer with any halfway decent buckshot load to be able to give us a starting point to work off of. It usually works well with a wide variety of different shells, so we'll see what this combo can give us. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards, the chronograph so we can get our velocity, and the templates that we can lay up over our results. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see what the Remington 2 3/4 27 pellet 4 buck shells can actually give us for a starting point here today. Alright, so that shell gave us 1337 through the chrono. Boss claim is 1325, so we're just a tad bit over that claim. And from our 28 inch barrel, I'd say we're exactly where we're supposed to be. So let's head down to our target and see what kind of a pattern they actually gave us. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40 yard paper, and we definitely see some pretty interesting results here. The white dot was my point of aim. The paper's 36 inches wide by about 44 inches tall, and we did have all 27 pellets on the paper. However, in circling them, I always count them, and we actually have 30 pellet holes on the paper, even though that clearly states that it's a 27 pellet load. So did we get a couple extra pellets in our shell, or was it a case of some just pretty poor lead casting and we got a few smaller size pellets, or pellets that were split in half or something like that? Maybe it could be either one or a combination of the two, but we most definitely have 30 pellet holes in this paper. But as you can see, we have an okay pattern here. I mean, the white dot was my point of aim and we covered a decent majority of it right around there, so it's definitely not bad overall. It is a little bit more on the broad side. You do get a couple of flyers, mainly there's one over there on the left, maybe one up there at the top and stuff, but it's not too terrible. It's not the most even spread either. We kind of have a little bit of a hotter zone below the white dot and a little bit of a hotter string up there above it as well. So not the most perfectly even pattern. I did measure up, down, left, and right, and that gave us a 27 inch tall by 30 inch wide spread, and that's including all 30 of those pellets. So 27 by 30 isn't terrible, but it's still a little bit more on the broad side. We can definitely reduce that down with the right choke, more than likely, but for a starting point, it's not horrible. I just wish it was a touch more evenly spread between the pellets, especially right there around that white dot. We've only got one of them in there. But let's throw a couple templates up and get a little better reference than just this blank sheet of paper. So first up here is our 10 inch circle, and we had 7 pellets within 10 inches at 40 yards. It's not completely horrible, but for a 4 buck shell, I think we should have a few more of them in there personally. And you can kind of see how we run a little bit thin up there around the top part of that white dot area. There's just not a whole lot right through the middle, right where you kind of want it to be. So the core itself isn't anything to write home about, although it is still good enough to do the job for what you need it to. But let's swap over to some animal templates and see how it would look if you took it out on a hunt. So next up here is our deer template, and when we line it up with our point of aim, you would have absolutely covered him in pellets. There's no doubt about that. A ton up there through the back and the spine area, several through the vitals, and more up in the neck and stuff like that. So absolutely a dead deer all day long. I know not everybody uses 4 buck for deer, but within their respective ranges, they are more than capable of getting the job done. Now, I don't think this is the best pattern for a stationary deer hunt if you're in a tree stand or something like that. If you're running dog dogs or a deer drive or whatever, and you're going to be taking a 30 to 40 yard moving shot on a running deer or something, that might be what you're looking for, but it is a little bit more broad than what I would like to see if I was to use a 4-buck pattern for my own deer hunting scenario, but it would be good enough. So let's swap over to the hog template, and that'll give us a better reference on a little bit smaller body sized animal as well. And here's that hog template, and like I suspected, pretty well the exact same story here. Good enough to take a hog out to 40 yards with it, but it is pretty broad and you covered most of him. But this also gives us a little bit better reference for something like a coyote. They would be just a touch smaller than this hog template is, and yeah, that would be some pretty decent coyote medicine, especially for ones that are on the move and you might want a little bit more leeway in your shot while still having a good handful of pellets through the body or vitals or whatever the case would be. That would get it done, but you can definitely still tell that it's not the most consistently even spread out there either. So overall thoughts here today, for a starting point here, just through a full choke, it's not bad. That is a usable combination the way it is, but I definitely think we can still get much better out of them. These 4-buck express shells, at least the 2 3/4 version that we tested today, does not have a wad in them. It does say on the box that they are buffered and that they can be fired through any choke, but a full choke is typically best. So I think if we go to something a little bit fancier, you know, the Kick's butt kicker choke or the bore blaster from Trulock or something like that, we can dial these in a little bit better. So not a terrible starting point, but we've got some room to improve as well. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? I think we pretty well already covered it at this point. It's a decent starting point, but it does have its few little quirks about it. I would prefer to have a few more pellets right in our core area, and maybe just a touch more condensed of a pattern overall, but I don't think that's going to be too difficult to get with one of a few other chokes that I've got. I think we can dial these in a little bit. Now, something that I do want to kind of watch is, are we consistently going to see 30 pellet holes from all the other shells that we test? Believe it or not, this isn't the first time with a Remington shell that we have seen an extra pellet or two in our load. I've got a 3.5 inch 18 pellet double-aught buck load that we've seen an extra pellet or two in as well when we tested it previously. So I don't know, could just be a quality control type of thing. I'm not really complaining too much if I got an extra pellet or two in my shell, if it still patterns well, but it's just something interesting that we'll have to keep an eye on as we continue to test them. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Remington 4-buck shells, and if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that a pattern or a combo you would hunt with, or would you prefer to see it a little more condensed down or a little more even of a spread than that? And what other chokes do you want to see us run those shells through? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.